I'd like to introduce actually my daughter, Jennifer Bressler, who's going to speak this morning. With bachelor's degrees in graphic design from both Art Center College of Design and the University of Wisconsin at Madison, Jennifer's passion for design has also led her to teach courses at Art Center and UCLA Extension. She has served on the board of directors for the Society for Experiential Graphic Design and is frequently asked to speak to audiences about the unique nature of design in her profession. Jennifer has guided many of Hunt Design's high-profile projects since joining the firm in 1996. Her professional focus has been in the realm of exhibit design and graphics for colleges, museums, cities, and parks. Jennifer's success is building consensus amongst stakeholder groups and committees has been a hallmark of her career. She is an inspiring designer and project director who, since being named partner in 2003, has provided leadership in managing the firm. Jennifer's many long-term clients keep coming back for her contagious enthusiasm, her unique problem-solving abilities, and positive, lighthearted approach. Jennifer.
Okay, when it's your mom that introduces you, I don't know. It's kind of like cheating or something. Okay. Oh, I will. I'm as loud as they get on top of it, so. Okay, well, good morning. Thank you guys for coming. I'm excited to share this with you. I still can't hear me. Oh my God, this is a little much. It's a lot of me. It was interesting to try to pull together a presentation today because I'm usually speaking to public cities, parks, and trying to solve their problems. And I don't have any problems that I can solve of yours, but I hope that I can give you an engaging discussion about a lot of places that you go to. Has anybody ever gotten lost? Ever? Yeah. And have you ever gotten lost while you're driving? And it's probably a pretty uncomfortable feeling, right? Or when you come to take one of your grandchildren to Disneyland or to a zoo, what does it feel like when you get in the door and there's people all over the place and you're trying to orient and find the restroom, right? The very first question people ask is, where's the restroom? So let me go ahead and, oh God, here we go. All right. For those of you who don't know me, you might know my mom. I wanted to reset my reputation in this community. I had a disastrous wedding 25 years ago here. And we don't need to talk about the details. Come on, let's go. Aiden. It's not working. We have that problem now. It's like a battery thing? No.
We had this problem last time, Aiden.
Yeah. Oh, there you go.
What are you doing?
Yeah, what are you doing, Aiden?
There's a sweet spot right here.
Which one are you?
Right here?
You just gotta find the sweet spot. Once you find the sweet spot.
Okay, all right, sweet spot, here we go. Okay, so 25 years since my dreadful wedding, and we won't even get into the details because you don't want to know, but they changed the carpet out, so we're all good. I'm going to go ahead and move forward. While I resemble my parents, I definitely do, I have their combined values, Mom's appreciation for art and her sense of humor, and my dad's drive and his business sense and sheer awesomeness. I have absolutely none of their class whatsoever, none of their class. So keep your expectations in check, and I promise you an engaging discussion here. So this is my office. We're in Pasadena. I've been there for just 29 years of my career, and the guy in the middle was my professor at Art Center in Pasadena. This is very awkward because I keep having to look up here. And the guy on the bottom is my current partner, John Temple. And we design experiences that connect people to place. Oh. Okay. I have a feeling some of you have been to some of these places, the National Mall, the Hollywood Bowl, the Golden Gate Bridge, Statue of Liberty. And I bring these up not because these are just my projects, they're places that are super busy. The bad part is during COVID, there's nothing like being in the business of overly crowded places because nobody was going out, right? So what people do is they come to us for very complex wayfinding problems. So when you get off the metro and you're trying to get to the National Mall, there's a billion people swarming all over, all different languages, and you have to sort of sort your ways to get to where you're trying to get. Oh God, Aiden. Okay, these are some of our current projects. We're working on Yosemite, working on safety. More people die, unfortunately, on Half Dome, climbing Half Dome, than in any other national park in the United States. At the same time, we're working on Montana, all the different fish wildlife parks, all of the state of Montana, Point Reyes National Seashore, and we also have some really crazy projects. If any of you have been to Rockefeller Center, there's a top of the rock experience. If you're interested in sitting on a beam and getting shot up at the top of a building and spinning around, that experience just opened about a month ago. So we've got all kinds of very strange projects, and I wanted to share some of them with you. Oh boy, we're gonna have fun with this clicker. Okay, Aiden's sweet spot was right there. Okay, I'm not gonna go very far. I'm gonna just hang out right here. Oftentimes we get these projects by doing evaluations. We get hired just to study a property and figure out what the problems are. So a lot of that is just literally taking pictures, watching families fight, watching a husband and wife look at a map and disagree. And what we do is we just study and watch people, and it might be something as easy as an airport, like LAX, or working in a museum. But as you watch people, people don't get along. People tend to disagree about how they want to plan their day. These are some of the projects that we've worked on. We work on lots and lots and lots of cities across the United States. Donor recognition, which you're probably familiar with, which is, it used to be the tree of life that people see in temples and churches, but there's a lot of really engaging ways that you can do donor recognition. And those go across anything from a hospital to a college. We work on a lot of college campuses, civic projects, museums, and entertainment environments, like I said. On top of that, we work on a lot of Disney projects. And Disney, the one thing about Disney they do right is they know how to operate. And if you walk around a Disney park, there's never a cup sitting on the ground. Everything gets picked up immediately. So we've learned a lot from that. So to talk about wayfinding and what a sense of place is, placemaking and branded environments, interpretive environments, hopefully I can sort of answer for you today what those are. Let's see here. I'm going to recommend a new battery. Okay, a sense of place refers to the unique emotional connection and meaning of individuals attached to a particular location based on their experiences and perceptions of its physical and cultural characteristics. If we start with Valley Beth Shalom absolutely has a sense of place. When you're in synagogue, you can hear the rabbis' voices. You can hear, Yossi's voice, right? Getting yelled at to Yossi, but I know he's always there. He's not going to let me mess up, right? Cantor Fox, you hear all of those voices and the melodies and the experiences you may have had. Hi, how are you? If you've had any bar and bar mitzvahs here, I got married here, all of those things create a sense of place. Sweet spot, where are you? Okay, I'm going to cut this to the cliff notes of wayfinding here so I can get through this. Come on. Aiden, where's the sweet spot? There we go. Okay. When you get to a destination, people want to get oriented. They want to know, where am I? What are my choices? where are the things that I want? What do I need? How can I get there from here? Execution is going there, and arrival, the fact that you found it. So when you arrive at a particular ride at Disneyland, you are rewarded by seeing the entrance sign, right? You know that you've arrived. Every environment has two types of wayfinding tools. There's passive wayfinding tools and active wayfinding tools. And come on. Okay, passive tools are intuitive trail or park environment, a logical placement of amenities, iconic destinations, nomenclature that's very logical, good sight lines. So when you go, I'm going to use Disneyland as another example. When you see the Magic Castle, in the business, they call it the big weenie. It's the thing that you know that you want to go to. You can see it from afar, and that's what draws you there. So passive tools are basically an architect did a good job. You kind of know where you're going because it's intuitive. The trail leads you there. And then there's active tools that are things that I might do, that I put a sign that directs people to where they want to go. If you have a wayfinding app is an active tool and a website. You can actively plan where it is that you want to go. Ask me people that you know, at the zoo, San Diego Zoo, they have a ton of Ask Me people. They're some of the most knowledgeable people there are. Barriers to wayfinding, and I use park wayfinding here, that people have to make multiple turns. That's a barrier to them getting there. Changes in topography. Oftentimes, if you have to climb a hill, that can be a barrier to wayfinding. Indistinguishable destinations, illogical or complex nomenclature, bad sight lines, too many visitor choices at one time, sign clutter, we're all very aware of too many signs. Acoustic clutter is when you go to a museum and it's so loud you can't even find your way because there's so much visual noise or acoustic noise that it creates another confusing point. You probably don't even realize this, but when you get to a certain destination, you may have gone through 10 or 20 different signs from the time you're in your car, arriving in the parking lot, trying to get parked, trying to remember what level you are on, what color you are on, what character you parked at. And then pedestrian, you get out of your car, you may see another 15, 20 signs. These are all things that you're not thinking about, but the best wayfinding is wayfinding that's there when you need it, and it's not there when you don't need it. You don't see it. It's something that kind of folds into the environment. And mapping, and I promise this isn't all schooling you here. I'll go through some projects now. Abstractions of the real world, not much research. How many people have ever gotten lost at a mall? The map is always done poorly. The map, you're sure that Nordstrom's is that way, but it's upside down because they don't orient it. So there's something called heads-up mapping where you're always facing the direction you're going. And if you're old school, you always think you have to have a north-south map. There's nothing more confusing than a north-south map because you're going in a direction that you're not facing. So there's a lot of studies as to how to orient people, and I'll kind of share a few of them. So this is my favorite thing to talk about is community wayfinding because it's very sticky and people don't get along and it's actually kind of fun. It's fun because I get to leave, to be quite honest with you, but it's very, very complex work. Come on. Okay. Placemaking, city culture, and branding, these are all three different elements that you put together when you're trying to work for communities. I'm going to keep going because I'm killing my time here. Okay, this is what I deal with, okay? This is a nightmare. I threw in a couple funny ones here for you, but the truth is the dynamics of city culture is very interesting because these people just live in the same place. They're not married to each other. They have to just deal with each other. They work with each other. People have different sets of taste. People live in different environments, but it's a very challenging process because I have to listen to everybody, build consensus, and then figure out how to push it through city council. And it's kind of like therapy, because you get the employee that just got hired, you get the employee that just got promoted, there's the guy that just got demoted. They're all sitting at the table with me. There's the guy that's worked there since he graduated in the 1930s, and he thinks he knows everything. So the biggest thing is to watch out for the quiet ones, I've learned. The quiet ones, or the guy that has his arms crossed. Those are the ones that you really have to look out for. What's that? Because they're usually the public works people. They're the you can't do this people, or you can't put that in the median, or so sometimes if you win the hardest person in the room, it's the best one. So that's what I've learned from too many years of this. But these are, televised. I'm televised during these really crazy conversations about where to place a sign. These are public meetings that are held at 7 o'clock at night, and everybody's invited to come. And there's some really weird people that show up, let me just tell you. And depending on where you are. So here's a few projects that are community wayfinding projects I've worked on, and hopefully you might have seen some of these along the way. Westwood Village is an interesting place because there's really wonderful historic buildings that are still there, and there's so many cities that don't have that same history. So they came to us, and there's a perception there's absolutely no parking. There is parking, it's just that town is owned by a couple of people, and they pretty much own all of the buildings in Westwood. So the way we think about cities, if you are in New York City and you want to meet me at the Jewish Museum, okay, great, I'll meet you at 93rd and 5th Avenue. It's pretty simple. It's avenues meet streets. In Westwood, it's really not like that at all. Hopefully you can see that. The city grid has angles that go across an orthogonal grid. It's pretty confusing because you're going at an angle. You're not really going north. You're kind of going at a funky angle. So there's a lot of process involved in this, a lot of different conceptual meetings where we share different styles. In this case, I don't love the logo, but sometimes the logo is brought to me, and then I have to take that and turn that into signage. So what we did is we focused on the buildings. And a lot of times if there's history there, it's a great thing to hang your hat on. So here, if you see at the top of the sign panels, usually it's a conventional roadway sign that's not that exciting, right? There's certain typefaces I'm allowed to use. I have to keep type at a certain size for drivers that are going fast. But you can see that each one of the top logos on these kind of reflects that the buildings share. So it's nice because it becomes part of the brand of that city. The second city is probably the most difficult city I've worked with, is the city of Santa Barbara. Nobody builds anything in Santa Barbara. Santa Barbara is probably one of the most difficult cities to work in. I had a lot of luck because I got along really well with the architects. And I can appreciate Spanish architecture, and if you don't, forget it. Don't even work in Santa Barbara. You just have absolutely no chance. Santa Barbara is also kind of a tricky one because of the way the beach faces. It's one of the only beaches that faces the water. Hopefully you can see this. It looks really pale. The city grid here, again, you think you're looking at the water, but you're actually looking, at an angle. And so these are things that nobody even thinks about because you're in a car or you're walking. These are sort of, ways that make it more difficult for vehicular traffic, for pedestrians. The idea is that we get people parked, get them on foot, and get people walking. So we went through a whole study of different sign colors, and different characteristics in Santa Barbara. They have this really hot, I call it the hot dog font. If you can see in the lower left there, it's kind of a funky font that they picked. It's supposed to be kind of Spanish. It doesn't look Spanish, it looks like a hot dog to me. But I noticed in the streets, in the street corners, there's this beautiful typography inlaid in brass. And we tried to capitalize on the look of that and try to, again, elevate the look of Santa Barbara. So this is me at City Council trying to talk them into the fonts and giving them a few different choices, and I always put it in the middle because that's usually the one that people pick. It's always B. So the final ended up with 3 different sign styles, one for the historic downtown area, one for citywide, for Santa Barbara, and one for the waterfront. And the idea is that as they get millions and millions of visitors a year, they come in, they don't follow the colors, but what they do is it becomes like a system. And here's the final system here. We have walking maps, directing people. I don't know if you can even tell that it's blue, but that's the waterfront. On this side, we have Old Town. You can see we've sort of capitalized on some of the shapes of the architecture. And again, these become the brands of the city. So the next category, I've got 5, by the way. The next category is placemaking for museums and paid destinations. And I'm assuming that many of you go to museums on a regular basis, so hopefully this will also be of interest to you. So the good thing about Santa Barbara is if you make enough friends, then you get the next client, right? So the Santa Barbara Museum of History is a recent project. It's interesting because they have the same thought process about the Spanish colonial style. And so you have to, it's not about my style, it's got to be about the style of the client and what they're looking for, and it's finding and listening to what it is that they need. So Santa Barbara Museum, very classic style. The architect was very classic. It was, very clean typography, pin mounted on the building facade. But what you're not seeing here is all the public process that we had to do and how challenging that is to get the landscape architect, all the different people involved in Santa Barbara, and everybody has a say. So it's sort of a challenging part of what I do. Has anybody been to Segerstrom Hall in Orange County? This is one of the great destinations in Orange County. And, when you arrive at a place and you get out of the car, there's something really quite magical about thinking about it's a whole evening out. It's got a lot of cultural aspects to it. You might go to dinner, you might go to a play, you might see a dance performance. Come on. Okay, sweet spot. There we go. Okay. You can see there's a map here. We have to sort of think about the pedestrian, getting them around. These letter forms are, they're about 36 inches tall. And we've come up with some graphics. Hang on a second here, guys. There we go. You can see donor recognition in the upper left there. So it's finding ways that are different. It's not, I said Tree of Life about donor recognition when I started. It's coming up with ways to celebrate the people that help donate to a particular project, but it becomes part of the environment. So the Judy Moore Theater, we did some great fun super graphics that welcome you up to the dance hall. And sort of a fun example. Hollywood Bowl, I did 9 months pregnant with my son. And I think this opened, and the next day I went into labor with Eli. So the Hollywood Bowl it's an interesting project. It's an LA County park, actually. And we installed about 700 or 800 signs, and probably if you've been there, you've never realized that you've seen any of those signs. They're there when you need them. You need to get back to your car or rideshare or the buses. But again, this is entirely a different style. This is, we had to follow a lot of historic guidelines to get there. the Hollywood Bowl letters going up was a fun idea that we had so that, everybody is running up the hill to get to the performance. All of these things kind of play a role in your overall experience. Nevada Art Museum, and I'm not going to go into each one of these, but as you can see here, something as boring as a men's restroom sign becomes part of the brand of that place. There's a donor recognition in this lower cafeteria here. So different ways that you can sort of engage people. This one's one of my newest projects that just opened. I'm not sure if any of you have been there. Oh, come on. Okay, Natural History Museum in Los Angeles just opened their community commons entrance, and we got to work on a pretty fancy team of a very cool architect and landscape architect, and some of these sort of collaborative teams are really very interesting to work on. Again, donor recognition and in setting brushed aluminum letters into the garden. This is like as cheap as it gets. I just did vinyl letters that look like they're sandblasted on glass. But it's a really cool environment. There's an interesting donor recognition where we sold little bugs, and if you gave a certain amount, you got a bee. If you gave a different amount, you get a butterfly. So it's always thinking of really creative ways to think about donor recognition so that it's not a slat or it's something that you're, sort of just attaching over time. But there's this long corridor to get to where you're going. They wanted entirely bilingual messaging. We redid their maps all in Spanish and English. And it was a challenge, let me tell you. And sorry guys. One World Observatory in New York, I've worked on a lot of, Top of the Rock is an experience, you can go to the top. I've done the World Trade Center, was the first project I worked on out of school. Unfortunately, that project is no longer, but One World Observatory came back, built up One World, and you can go and experience that as well. But when people pay $25 or $50 to get into a particular destination, their expectations are high. So, what's that? In New York. Yeah. And, I think there's experiences, media experiences, and content developers that we're working with to develop the content to tell history. All of these sort of really multifaceted design teams that make it a very interesting process. Okay, getting there, guys, here. Come on. Sorry, guys. All right, medical environments. I promise I'm going to keep this one short because, who wants to talk about medical? But it's also kind of an interesting topic because oftentimes you want to either comfort people or, make it eat. First of all, if you're going to ER, you need to know where you're going, right? So it's like an airport. It's got to be very clear. This is a donor recognition system that has lenticulars. So as you walk by them, they change colors and it has the donor names. So it's thinking of creative ways. And if you're stuck in that hospital for weeks on end and you're visiting a kid, if we can make it a little easier for them, that's all the better. I can't really help them, but, finding signage and different ways that you can make it an interesting environment would be really great. Getting people to know what floor they're on. I'm on the purple floor, I'm on floor 4. I'm on floor 5. Waiting rooms where you have graphics to look at. We even designed the ceiling above kids' heads as they're looking up at the ceiling and they're in bed. I've actually had a friend or two that have had kids that had to go to a children's hospital and be there for quite some time. And they said, oh my God, if it weren't for the graphics, I don't even know, what we would have done. It's something that, it gives them something to look at and think about. Cedars-Sinai, other environments are a little bit more austere, and these are sort of very deep letters that sort of formalize donor recognition. We have big stainless steel graphics in the pavement. Parks and zoos, I'm only doing 5, so not to worry. Parks and zoos are one of my favorite things to work on because the people are so passionate. It's kind of like the community wayfinding stuff. I've been to commission meetings in Santa Monica where they had to take one guy out because he was the tree hugger guy that's like, don't take the trees, don't take the trees. I don't take trees away from people. I just put signs to get people there. So these people are very, very, very passionate. The National Mall is probably one of our sort of capstone projects. We got to design a whole set of icons to direct people because it's an international audience, obviously. And the idea is that, each time you're looking off in the distance, there's an architectural reference point for what that logo is. And it's one of these sort of permanent projects. We installed it, 18 years ago probably, and it still looks nice and fresh and tends to work very well. You can see this is a heads-up map of the Smithsonian, of the whole National Mall walk, and if you need to get to a particular museum, I guarantee you this is one of the most used maps of any map. These are located right near subway stations so that when people get off Metro, they can easily get to whatever museum they're looking for. Tabletop style. This is my friend Dennis. We had to do foam core mock-ups to try to sell this to the different commissions. So we'll build fake signs out of paper, take it, test it, check the type sizes, and make sure that it all works nicely. Okay, Golden Gate. I started my career working in the Golden Gate National Recreation Area and was able to design a park system that kind of opened up parks for our office. The National Park Service is an interesting group of people. I go to these. I was hired by a Parks Conservancy, which is the money arm, and then there's the National Park Service, and they show up with their seams and their hats and their. Did you know that those seams are in their pants? Like they don't. I thought they were just neat people, but they don't really like each other always. So again, it's that hairy, weird stuff I like where I have to get along with both sides. So the National Park Service learned to trust me for whatever reason, I don't know. And so we got to break what the National Park Service normally does because this is an urban park. It was different. Not all parks are like Yosemite, but people treat them like they are, right? And you can't have a sign system that works at Zion that also works for San Francisco. So we got to work on Alcatraz. How do you tell stories about something that has a history of movies, it has a history as a jail, it's got native plants and migration of birds at different times of the year. So all of these things are so engaging to try to direct people through a trail system that's all over San Francisco. And this is what our documentation looks like. We put together huge documents that sort of build all the signs, and here we are 20-some years later, and this is throughout the Presidio and all of the new projects up there as well. Does anybody have any questions? I'm like going on and on and on. Yeah.
How many people do you employ to do all this?
I've got 9 people.
Just 9?
9 people, but I work a lot. My mom will tell you, I do work a lot. The trick is we always have one person short. That way with the flow of business, I'm okay, right? But we have 9 people. We have about 30 or 40 projects going at any point in time. Some of them go really long though. Like an LAX project could take 5-6 years. Other ones, a month, 2 months. Some of them are very long projects. Yep.
Will you be involved in the reconstruction of the city Palisades or Pasadena?
I don't know. I hope so. Oh, sure. He was saying, would I be involved in any of rebuilding after the fires? And I have a feeling there will be federal funding and city money that goes towards certain organizations. I certainly would love to build the synagogue over and work on that project. And I have a funny story to share at the end with the last project I was going to share. But yeah, we have to follow the trends of where money goes. So on one year, they might be throwing tons of money into theme parks, and they may be building something in Beijing. And the next, there may be a lot of money going towards colleges. Right now, the current administration is taking money away from the National Park Service. So some of my projects, I've lost some of the people that I'm working with on National Park Service. So we kind of have to go with the flow of things, but having enough public and private work at the same time has allowed us to sort of roll with the trends. LA Arboretum is another one. I don't know, some of you may have been there. It's a garden that we just recently installed. And I put it in here just because, when you arrive in the plaza, why have a sign that's boring that just says LA Arboretum, right? So they let me do something really, really fun. It was very difficult to build and stand up, but it's become kind of a place where people like to take pictures. But again, these are things, signage, couldn't think of a more boring word for what I do, but signage and wayfinding can be really interesting. And this is another donor recognition program here right when you get into the plaza, and we took brushed aluminum panels, put donor names. We have Spanish tiles that go from the parking lot all the way into the Arboretum, and then Corten steel, which is that really rusty steel. We've got interpretive panels that talk about all the different botany and different plant IDs. And zoos. Zoos are a lot of fun. We've been working for San Diego Zoo, Santa Ana Zoo, Oregon Zoo, Cleveland Zoo. We've had a lot of fun. I'm not great at my animals, it turns out, but these people are passionate. I'll tell you one funny story. In the Cleveland Zoo, I got there, was on probably my 4th or 5th meeting, and everybody was really quiet. It was a super weird meeting. And you're trying to read the room, try to figure out what's going on, and all you're trying to do is show them some signs, right? It's not really rocket science. Turns out the gorilla that was just born, the mom didn't want to accept the baby gorilla. But, oh my God, it's like, what did I walk into? It's the weirdest thing to work with these people. They're so passionate, and they were terrified of what the public would think of, thankfully another gorilla took them in. So it all worked out. It all worked out. I know. It was very interesting for me to navigate. I was sent to school for design. I'm not trained for this kind of stuff. San Diego Zoo. This is my friend Deborah, who I don't know where she is. I don't even know where she lives right now. She's saving animals all over the world. The San Diego Zoo, we give a job number when we get a project. So this one's 2364. And every time we get another project with that client, we give it a letter. So 2364A, B. I got to 28 letters so far. I've got the record in my office for all the different projects we work on at San Diego Zoo. So if you've been there, it's a really special place. Not because of the signage, obviously. It's just a beautiful, yeah. Maybe. I hope so. We did work on World Cup soccer once. There's a lot of firms that only do design for sport. So we'll see. We'll see. I hope so. So one of the things about San Diego Zoo is something like 85% of the people that go there got lost. And it was so obvious to us why they were getting lost. The topography is complicated, it's beautiful, There's an animal that's yelling at you when you're walking on the pathway. There's kids running all over the place. But what we did is we redesigned their map first, and we told them, if you think about it like a city, and you create like a freeway system. If you're from here, people laugh at me, by the way. I say the 405. Everywhere else, they call it just 405, right? They would not say such a thing. But you can see here we have Center Street, Parkway. We renamed the streets and created access points so that you could do what you did in New York, which is, I'll meet you at 92nd and 5th Avenue. Basically, you say, okay, take Center Street to Asian Passage to get to the pandas. So it gave internal people a way to do that. And then we also gave a bright red dot, and we numbered them so that people don't fall off the map. And when I say fall off the map, what that means is you ever taken a map and you're walking and you see people and they're turning the map upside down? That's usually how people find their way. But when you go back to the map after you look up and you see the panda, you're like, oh, shit, where was I? Where was I on that map? So we have these red dots so that every time you see one of these major signs, you can reorient yourself. I'm at dot 19. So these are sort of some of the strategic thinking that we've done for cities and zoos that have very topographic areas. And then the other thing about zoos is they work in zones. So the idea is that if I could step my foot in one of the zones, each of the zones, I will have gotten my money's worth. That's what the zoo director told me. So the idea is that you break it into parts and pieces for people to make it a little bit easier. Those are my kids when they were little. The good thing about what I do is it hands down, it's much cooler than what my husband does. My kids have sort of been along the way for a lot of these experiences. When we opened the Elephant Odyssey, Eli was sure he was the guy, He stood there and he got on the news, and I don't have the video with me, but he was holding his keys. He was so serious that he was not too close, not too close. So anyways, if you've been to San Diego Zoo, you've also been probably to their sister property, which is Safari Park. Equally very cool. We implemented the same idea, but the signage was all sandblasted wood because we wanted it to feel a little bit more natural. All right, this is the last one, I promise, and then we could ask more questions. Interpretive environments is the other place that I spend a lot of my time working on exhibits, working with content developers and specialists in each particular category. This is an exhibit at MSI in Chicago about the human body. And it had a very cool architect, an exhibition firm from New York, and we were graced with doing the graphics for that project. A lot of interactives, studying how people learn, thinking about having things for different ages. That's something that's really important. We have something called a smart daddy or a smart granddaddy or grandma. You ever notice if you go to a zoo or an exhibit, there may be a grandma or I'll use daddy, I'll use grandpa. There's a grandpa and his grandson, and they're looking at a particular sign, and the kid is so engaged and can't believe grandpa knows everything. But grandpa is just reading the sign, right? But we all trust and we know that they know everything, and that's the way it goes. So the idea is to try to, just like a newspaper, you have headings, subheadings. And so a lot of the thinking behind interpretive design is breaking stuff down so that it works for a multi-generational group of people. Greater Zion, I just opened during COVID. This is a visitor center for a public city. It's a county project. They wanted an exhibit, but they had live animals. So who do you call? Jen Bressler, right? Because I can do snakes, I can do tarantulas, and we can do tortoises in an indoor environment, no problem. So this, there's the tarantula up there. The idea is that there's a lot of places to go other than Zion in that area. So in the whole greater Zion area, there's incredible hiking. We've got animal cases that are backlit animal photos, sorry. We created 2 trees. We had a sculptor build a Joshua tree, looks like a tree. And then we built a huge table. We sculpted a whole canyon in the space. This had live tortoises walking around in the center. Each one of those cases had like black lights so that you could see the scorpion, had a button so that kids could see it. So it's finding ways to make it kind of fun. I went on Wayfair and I found cool chairs. So it's a lot of fun. It goes really, really fast. And let me show you one more thing here. Okay, I got to hang for this now. This is a topographic map that we created. It's about 8.5 feet by 12 feet long. And there's projectors in the ceiling that project on top of that topographic map. So if you want to learn about hiking, you press an iPad button that takes you, and it keys to those 3 huge 85-inch, they're giant monitors with content that tells you about Colorado Plateau, or it tells you about the flora and fauna or the cultural destinations. But it's a very rich environment for a visitor center. But again, it had sort of that, I got to work with the community, this like weird group of people that didn't really like, the other arm of people. So that's what's engaging for me. And the last project I'm going to share, very last one, I thought I'd bring something religious. If it's not Jewish, it's something else. Women in Spirit, I have a thing for Catholic sisters. We did this traveling exhibit called Women in Spirit, and I always share it because it's the best project I've ever worked on. It's the best project because there was this mutual respect of the Catholic sisters, when, every high holiday I get a call from one of the Catholic sisters, every single time. October 7th, anything that happens in Israel, they're always, hey, what's going on? They always check in with me. This group of people, I had to tell their story, and we did everything on a maple plywood and digitally printed all the graphics because it had that warmth that they have. They're incredibly intelligent. I got to stay in a mother house twice. That was an experience. What's that? It was a traveling exhibit that went to Smithsonian. It was out here in LA. It went to the Cleveland Jewish Museum, and it was a great traveling show. But we had so much fun working on it. This is us at a Buca de Beppo at the Pope Room with me and a bunch of Catholic sisters. So I always have to have a good story. And this is my friend Sister Barb here at the bottom. It's actually it's a little bit of a sad story because the Catholic sisters, like a lot of religions, are everything's sort of ending for them. And so Sister Barb is the 4th one in the middle on the top. This is many years ago when I worked with her. She came back and gave me a call a few months back and asked me whether I would design their legacy exhibit for the Adrian Dominican sisters. So I can't say no to Barb. There's no way. Sister Barb's going to get a no from me. She's so cool, this woman. She teaches at University of Michigan. So I got on a flight to Detroit, of all places, and there was the Adrian Dominican sisters' car to pick me up. And of course I go on that I'm Jewish. I have to give it to them, So anyways, it's a mutual respect. It's been a lot of fun. I've learned a lot about them. They've learned a lot about me. And we're currently working on their legacy exhibit for what they want to tell about the Adrian Dominican sisters. So I believe I got to the end, believe it or not. I'll never know. There we go. So I hope I've kept you interested in the things that we work on. I'm obviously very passionate about it. And I think if you think about graphics transforming spaces, and when you go to a city and you don't get lost, you can think that there's somebody behind that that you're sort of thinking about those things and strategizing where to place signs. So is there any questions or, yeah?
Do international work too, or just here?
We do. We do international work also. A lot of the work I don't necessarily have to travel to, but during COVID I did a water park in Egypt, which was a really random one. And yeah, we do a lot of mostly theme park type of work overseas.
Thank you very much. It was very interesting. I'm just wondering, in this line of work that you do, is there a lot of competition because you seem to travel out of state quite a bit, right?
Yeah. Well, we have to compete for all the projects that we go for, yeah, I always, you know, you have to. We used to have to show up always and be in person to go to. Now it's on Zoom. You do your interviews on Zoom, which is a little bit different. But we have to compete for all the projects we go for, but all the work we have is word of mouth. I've never had a marketing person. We're going on 50 years, our office, of which I've been there for 29. And it's all about relationships and who you're working with, and that leads to the next person, which leads to the next person.
Yeah.
Sorry.
You may have touched on this when you started, but as you spoke, I became more interested in knowing how you got into this. I mean, it's so unusual to get involved in something where the directions are there. And
Yeah.
was that your development, or did you go into a group that already was there? And I wondered if you could bring some background.
That's a good question. Well, if you ask my mom, she used to take me to the market, and she would pick out peanut butter, and I put back the one I didn't want. I put the one that had the cooler label on it, right? The Jif label's the coolest one, right? So I think I've always been interested in packaging design, and that's how I, ended up doing what I'm doing. But I always knew I wanted to go to Art Center, and my mom and dad said, "Hell no, you're not going away. You're not going to Art Center. You live right here. You got to go away and have fun." And my dad was insistent that it had to be a football kind of a school where I would enjoy and have a college life. So I ended up with a very cool experience at Madison with one of the best corporate designers, and I was sure I was going to do corporate identity. And then I graduated in 3.5 years because I wanted to go to Art Center. I was right, my dad was wrong. And so I got myself to Art Center, thanks to my parents. And then I met Wayne Hunt, who was my professor. And I basically been working for 2 of my professors the entire time since I graduated. It's a mixture of architecture and graphic design. And I actually ended up in it by accident. Wayne was definitely not my favorite teacher at all. But I found it interesting because it's very complex, and I love to solve problems and puzzles. And it's complicated. If you think of a theme park from day one and planning master plan for how to plan for a park or how to plan for a theme park. So I'm intrigued by how complicated it is.
There's a line here. Excuse me?
Yeah. Sorry. Sorry.
So first of all, I'm fascinated because nobody ever thinks about this. We just take it all for granted. I'm someone who can get lost around the next corner. After the 5th step, I'm lost. And I've been in countries where you can't find your way into a hospital. And recently I got lost in a hospital here, and the cops got me into their car and took me to my car because the door I got into had been closed. Okay, so my question is, how often do you get to show this? It's fascinating and very interesting and new thinking. Yeah.
I've never spoken to a group
Where do you speak?
Yeah, I love to speak. I have a project I'm working on that I'd love to share, but it would have been another whole session about building a park on top of a landfill here in Puente Hills. And it's an environmental justice center. So when you were talking about saving the planet today and figuring out solving global warming, we're working on a lot of interesting projects. But I will tell you, some of the smartest people get lost. And that's one thing that my friend Heather that writes all my content went to Stanford. She's brilliant. She's totally brilliant. And she can't find her way out of a paper bag. I mean, she'll be in a Target parking lot. I'm like, Heather, how can you just aim for the target? And she's like, okay, I know, okay, I see Target. And then 5 minutes later, I'm like, I still haven't seen you. I don't understand. So, and, see? Yeah.
The thing is, and I give myself a bit of time. I call it Sablonza time.
Ah, okay.
If I'm lost, I know, then I'll find it. But this is wonderfully interesting and different.
Great. Thank you.
Well, thank you very, very much. I
Thank
think
you.
you opened our eyes to something new.
Thank you.